innovators. Welcome to the Can Innovate podcast, where we highlight Canadian innovators who are changing the game. I'm Sapna Malhotra, your proud Canadian host. The Can Innovate podcast is about providing industry insights from Canadian innovators that are doing it. They are really crushing it out there in the industry. These innovators share insightful thought leadership, tips, tricks, tactics that we can all adopt. Plus, they even share their own entrepreneurial tales of successes and failures, and they really show us what we can learn. So let's continue to innovate our own businesses, lives, and careers. And if you know of any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. You know I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me via email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in a review. All right, let's get to this episode. So we're really lucky today. We've got Bobby McDonald, who is raised and born in Stouffville, Ontario, spent 4 years studying at McGill University, worked in finance and software sales before starting Parlay full-time in early 2017. Welcome, Bobby. Did I miss anything in that intro?
Thank you. No, I think you got everything.
Excellent. So tell me, what exactly is Parlay besides a really great name?
Parlay is an education technology methodology, or an education technology tool and a methodology that the tool supports. And the goal is really simple. We want to reintroduce discussions into the classroom, sort of in a 21st century way. So really, Parlay helps teachers encourage students to have meaningful, measurable, and inclusive discussions.
Wow. Okay. So what does that really break down to? Like, what is happening right now? Like, you've had this idea while you were studying. How did this all come about?
Yeah, good question. So the original idea for Parlay came in second year university. So a close friend of mine and myself were looking around. I was studying business. He was studying politics. And we asked ourselves, why are we not having conversations about the events and ideas that are shaping our world in the world of business and politics? It's not like we were studying theoretical physics or anything. These were things that had real, tangible, real world consequences and real world events and ideas that we could draw upon. And there was none of that in the classroom. And the existing discussions that did happen in the classroom were on old, cumbersome discussion thread style forums that were not engaging, and none of the students really enjoyed them. So there was a clear lack of discussion in the classroom, and there's a lack of connectivity to the real world. There's a lot of students who ask themselves, why am I learning this? And we had been doing that pretty much throughout all of our education. So from those two pretty simple and common problems, the original idea for Parlay was born. It's taken many different twists and turns over the years. We spent $5,000 once upon a time on a developer from Craigslist and got nowhere. We've built WordPress sites. We've been through it all. And we're finally in a place right now where we're rocking and rolling.
It sounds exciting. So I see why you're doing it and how you're doing it. But what exactly is going to be changing? Like, you're saying it's going to be more, I mean, in this digital space, everything's with connected, computers and everything else. Is it going to be more remote type of things where you can see faces or?
Yeah, good question. So I guess to get into the nitty-gritty of Parlay a little bit, there are two discussion activities called roundtables. There's an online roundtable and a live roundtable. The online roundtable is a tool or an online discussion that can happen inside the classroom, but most of the time it happens outside the classroom. So students on their own time will watch the video, read the article, prepare their own response, and engage with their peers. So that is a real sort of blended learning approach where it can happen really from anywhere with any group from anywhere in the world, but the classroom in that sense becomes digital. The second discussion module is called a live roundtable, and that happens inside of the classroom. And so it's a way for when students are face-to-face having those verbal conversations for a teacher to track engagement and to measure the development of critical thinking and communication skills and provide feedback in real time, and for students to do the same. It can take place and often does outside of the classroom, but also inside of the classroom. So we're really sort of blending the use of technology and making the most out of students' time and teachers' time and the resources at schools.
That sounds amazing. And how do you figure out about the measurable, inclusive conversations? Like, how do you measure that?
Yeah, good question. So the measurable is, there's a number of ways that we do it. It can be as simple as the quantity of student participation. How many times did this student speak in the discussion? or it could be the diversity of that participation. With whom did this student most often interact? It can be measured by the quality of participation. So there's sort of really two ways to do that. One is a peer feedback mechanism, and the other one is the teacher sort of assigned grades and rubric style mechanism as well. Additionally, we're starting to experiment with natural language processing so we can understand more in-depth information about a specific student's post. Like, are they more likely to include positive or empathetic comments in their discussion than their peers? Are they, what's the average word count of their comments compared to their peers? So all these different sort of interactions, are they most likely to post? So all these different contribution or metrics from their contributions, we provide that in meaningful insights to the teacher so they can have a more informed understanding, not only of that student's original response or their content, but their overall engagement with their peers. So that's the measurable bit. The inclusive bit, there's a number of different ways that we do that. In online discussions, a lot of times we'll have anonymous responses. So teachers will basically assign students secret identities. So for the purpose of one specific discussion, the student might be Amelia Earhart or Jane Austen or Isaac Newton, and the students are therefore engaging with these characters from history, and they're not engaging with one another. The next discussion that rolls over, of course, everyone's secret identities will change. It adds a little bit of fun to the discussion, and it gives everyone a voice because they're not so worried about being tied to their ideas, which is a really important part of what we're trying to do, because we're trying to get students to understand that they're not tied to their ideas, and that the act of posing an opinion or submitting an idea is not a final product, and it's okay if other people disagree with it. In fact, that's a healthy thing, and it's okay for you to disagree with others and to provide constructive criticism. And that's, again, part of the peer feedback mechanism. So the inclusivity is really important because it's really important that students feel comfortable in that environment. In a live discussion, there's a couple of ways that we can do that as well, or at least foster the inclusivity. One of them is students can leave notes. If they're a quiet student, maybe English isn't their first language, they can leave notes, and the teacher can see those after, and they can demonstrate to the teacher that they are indeed engaging with the material. Another way is for students to raise their digital hand. So if they want to speak and the conversation's moving quickly and they're not the most assertive person in the room, maybe they're quite introverted, they can put their hand up, and the teacher will then take that opportunity to call on them knowing they want to speak and asking them to jump in. So it's a quiet way for them to introduce themselves to the conversation. And then the last way is the teacher can, in real time, nudge a student that they'd like to participate. So maybe there is that quiet student that doesn't always speak out. The teacher can quietly nudge them, which is a one-to-one communication, saying, hey, I'd like you to speak up. So again, encouraging that student to sort of join the conversation. So those are just some of the ways that we've really worked to make the conversations more inclusive and to make sure that every idea has its chance.
No, this is brilliant. And I love that. Raise the digital hand. I feel like, and right now on the podcast, you can't see it, but I'm raising both hands up, raising my digital. It's funny because I was recently on Facebook and I noticed that one of these Facebook live groups, they were doing some sort of training on something, and she was giving out prizes for the ones that were the most active and the most engaged people in the conversation. So that level of engagement and making sure that people are really kind of embracing it and being involved and getting out there and really adds to it. So you could see that big trend is really starting out there, especially on Facebook Live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in education, there's a lot of talk of digital citizenship, and it's really educators wrapping their heads around this idea that everything students do nowadays will be online in one form or another. Not everything, but most of what they do. And whether or not they want to be a part of the online community, well, they pretty much have to. And because of that, it's really important that we teach students and young people the reflective tendencies when they're engaging with online material. So, for example, if I'm on Facebook and I react to an article or that I read, did I read past the headline, or did I really watch the whole video? And then when I reacted and then just left it, did I think about why I reacted that way? Did I add something to the conversation? Did I contribute in any meaningful way? And so with online presence becoming increasingly ubiquitous, it's really important that we teach students to critically evaluate and be what they're reading and seeing online, and also to be active members of a community in a meaningful and substantive way.
Oh, I like this. This is so fascinating. So how on earth did you get this idea off the ground and get teachers to buy into this?
So it started, not to be too cliche, but it actually started on some Post-it notes. So we'd gone through a few iterations, as I was telling you earlier. I basically had some Post-it notes, did some really early crappy mock-ups on a great tool called Balsamic with a Q way back when. And I went to my university professors and I went to my former high school teachers and I told them what we were trying to do and what we were working on. And my former high school teachers were much more excited than my former university professors. So that was the beginning of us really understanding that there's a need for this. And more importantly than there's a need for this in the classroom today, when we were showing the first version of Parlay to educators, they were saying this is clearly where education is going. You're really on the bleeding edge here with some of the things that you're trying to do and with your sort of understanding of the more collaborative, engagement-driven nature of education moving forward. So that was all we needed. And then from there, we joined a startup accelerator program called the Founder Institute. I incorporated the company. And then while I was working full-time while working on Parlay on the side for over a year. So it was a really, really tough year. And I was investing my own money and some really early friends and family money to build a really, really, really scrappy minimum viable product. Got that out in September of 2016 in about 6 classrooms and was talking to teachers and getting lots of feedback at 4 or 5 different schools. So I used my network of teachers that I had in high school and they sort of introduced it to a few others. We got tons of feedback and they're like, yep, you're on the right track. This is something we would be willing to pay for, provided it was, more substantive, etc. And with that, we sort of pushed forward, started the company, and then brought on a development team. And by January of 2017, or February rather of 2017, I had started working on Parlay full time with the team.
No, that's amazing. See, being bootstrapped, I always find the people that are bootstrapped are the most passionate ones because they have everything in their money, their heart, their soul into things. And I love the fact that you actually did that early testing with those 6 teachers that you roped into to kind of be your beta testers to see what additional functionality and how to go. That's amazing. That is amazing. So what excites you most about this industry? Because you are definitely shape-shifting it. So, this whole education and learning is changing rapidly and you're on the forefront of it. So what excites you most about it?
There's a number of things that really excite me. Number one is it's like 150 years old or more, and for the most part hasn't changed at all. And that means there's a huge opportunity to change education. And it's no secret that education needs to change. From the job market, so employers are saying that students coming out of school, 50% of them don't have the adequate communication skills, 50% of them don't have the adequate critical thinking skills. The World Economic Forum says the skills of the future are things like cognitive flexibility and creative problem solving. All these, what we used to call soft skills, are now coming to the forefront. And so there's a huge opportunity to say, how do we create a classroom environment that facilitates these soft skills or these real 21st century skills, so-called, and then how do we effectively measure those skills developing in the classroom? And how do we make it fun and relevant for students to do those things? So that, I think, is the big opportunity in education. And I would also say that, the world is changing so quickly, obviously, technology, artificial intelligence, automation, all this kind of stuff. So it's increasingly important that we get the education component right. And then sort of from a more personal / philosophical level, if I look around the world today and I see increasing polarization, I see technology, social media more specifically, has made everyone more connected, but ironically, as everyone knows, more isolated. The term echo chamber gets thrown around a lot. And I think that that's a really important thing because we now know that we have to teach young people to actively seek out different opinions if we want them to be thoughtful, humble contributors to democracy, to the work world, to society at large. So it's really important that the educators, and that's going to fall on the shoulders of educators really, to instill these values in the next generation. So for me, those are the 2 big ones, the 2 big opportunities here in the education space.
That's brilliant. I was just thinking about when you were talking about teaching people to seek out different opinions. One of the things I've noticed regarding social media is that people are so quick to read an article or someone's blog and determine it as facts and then quickly share it amongst their peers. They don't do that level of due diligence of seeking out other types of sources of information. And it's just been a quick share, quick share. And this really, what you're talking about is really going to actually help them think about that a little bit more, to consider all the different kind of components and help them with that due diligence. So that is going to be really great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly a big part of what we're trying to achieve.
Oh, it's exciting. Oh, now I'm so much more excited for my niece's future that this is coming out here. So tell me, okay, so now you've done this. You've done this whole bootstrapped. You've done this accelerator. You've got the journey of the entrepreneur down. So as you've been doing this, is there any lessons learned or big aha moments of being this entrepreneur and bringing this to life?
Yeah, I would say don't spend money until you absolutely have to in your early days. You and I were just talking about me prototyping and getting it out into the market early. I think I spent too much money on that prototype, and I think I did it too early. So there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who have great ideas, but they don't have the technical skills. That's sort of like the number one thing that we see. So I would say to those entrepreneurs who don't have the ability to code, it's almost a blessing in disguise. Do some mock-ups, get like some high fidelity mock-ups, do some walkthroughs. Start interviewing your customers or potential customers. Start finding a way to really inexpensively have as many people as possible experience what your product will do before you ever spend money on a line of code. I think that's something that I did, but not as well as I could have. And when I try to help young entrepreneurs now, not that I'm, some big, huge success, but when people come to me and ask me, how can I get started? That's my number one piece of advice. You don't have to there's so many amazing tools out there. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get the validation that you need to keep going.
That's great advice, because you're right. We all get excited and we want to jump to it and get to the next thing. And, maybe spending money was, really quick and easy that we think. But this kind of slows down and you get to think a little bit more. So that's really great advice. I need to do that. I'm the first one to kind of jump on things.
Yeah, but actually on the flip side of that, I'll say at some point, you're just going to have to pull the trigger. And it's never going to be comfortable, but follow your gut and then pull the trigger and move forward and don't look back.
That's awesome. So, okay, so in this journey, was there any kind of tools or resources you were able to leverage from, the government or other types of areas or associations, or something that you wish you had?
Yeah. So last summer, we received a grant from the Ontario Centres of Excellence. So we had the Smart Start grant from them, and we were able to match funding from a few sort of early angel investors. And that wasn't a lot of money, just a little bit, enough to sort of get us to where we are today. So that was a great program, OCE's Smart Start program. There's the Founders Institute that I was a part of. Really sort of, when I was working full time, it really lit a fire under me to say, okay, you have to do these assignments every single week like clockwork. And if I didn't have that structure early on, I probably wouldn't have gotten so much done in such a short period of time. And then we've been a part of the Ryerson DMZ for a while, and that's been a great space too. It's good to be part of the startup community right in the heart of downtown Toronto. So all those sort of networks and communities have been helpful. I was thinking about this question of, is there anything that you wish you had? And this is a specific thing for education companies. I would say that the government would be wise to create a program. I don't know the details of this yet, but to create a program that connected aspiring edtech entrepreneurs with teachers, students, classrooms, etc., connected those two people together and gave them the opportunity to sit down and work together to investigate their ideas. And I guess this might even go back to not spending money before you have to. Going into the classrooms, talking to students, going through whatever the motions are to, make that legally eligible. But I think that education is an interesting space in that you really have to understand the teachers and the students. And that classroom environment is something very unique. And the best educational technology tools come from those companies and organizations that were able to go into the classroom. So I was fortunate enough to sort of break down those barriers, and it was really hard to do. I think Canada could be a really, really great hotbed for innovation in education technology if we were to do something like that and make that an easy program to do. I know that a lot of young aspiring teachers who are very innovative would love to do that. It'd be great for the students, depending on the age, obviously, but to get sort of involved and immersed in that entrepreneurial process. And of course, it would be great for the entrepreneurs themselves. So I think that kind of collaboration would be a really, really good project.
Wow, that is really good stuff. I hope we get somebody from the government to actually hear this out loud. But you know what? I do have some connections, so I might pass your podcast upwards because that's good. A great idea. Because we do need to champion that. And that's what the whole thing about innovation is about, collaboration and different types of ideas and different perspectives. And we need to stop talking in silos and in different vertical and just start talking in different cross-pollination of different skills, education, experience, and really diversify that. That's what the whole thing about diversity is really truly about. So That's a great idea. So can you share a sales or marketing tip for those that are really trying to get things off the ground?
Yeah, I would say don't underestimate the power of honesty.
Wow, I like that.
Cool.
No, I'm just digesting because I'm like, wow, that's a powerful statement. Don't underestimate that. Well, it is about being authentic these days, isn't it? So, yeah, that's so true. People want to connect with people that they like and they can trust. And that level of transparency and honesty could really provide that.
That's exactly it, especially if you're a young entrepreneur. There's a lot of, you hear the term fake it till you make it a lot. And in some cases, that's true. But, when you're working with early customers who know that you're a young company and they know that you're going to make mistakes and they know that things aren't going to be perfect, if you can build a rapport of trust and honesty and authenticity, they're much more likely to be okay with those mistakes, and you will make them, and they will want to help you because they'll trust that you are willing to figure it out. So that I would say in the early days, that's super important. There's a temptation to put on an air of, I have it all figured out. Confidence is important, but honesty goes a long, long way.
Oh, that's amazing. Bobby, I really find you a breath of fresh air. And, especially we're taking on the whole education system and really changing things. Can we get to know you since we're talking about honesty? So do you have any key business philosophies or a favorite quote, something that kind of creates that eureka moment to help you stay focused?
Yeah, I've been a fan of this one poem for a long time since I was quite young. It's called If, by a Victorian Stoic poet named Rudyard Kipling. Anyways, there's a line in the poem that says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. And part of being an entrepreneur and just life in general, I find is taking the real highs and bringing yourself down to a stable medium, and taking the real lows and bringing yourself back up to a stable medium. So if you can reduce the sort of band of potential, swings in emotion and state and all that kind of stuff, and you can realize that the great days are great, but they're going to end, and the bad days are terrible, but they're also going to end. If you can keep that in mind, it can help you stay steady through a lot of really challenging parts of this journey.
Wow, I don't think anyone's actually brought up a poem before, so you are definitely the first for that. That's great. So is there a popular productivity tool that you use?
It's really specific to a software business, but I really like Intercom. It has been the source of feedback from teachers. It's been where we help our customers when they have problems. It's been where we reach out to them when we have updates. It's been like this real central hub. It's pretty expensive. There's a good rate if you're a startup for the first year, but it quickly became absolutely integral to our business. So kudos to the Intercom team for building a world-class product.
Wow, I got to go check this out. I've never heard of Intercom, so I'm not familiar with it at all. And now you've piqued my curiosity. So do you have a business book or a podcast or a video or something that you're currently reading or something that you recommend to others that has really kind of inspired you somehow?
Yeah, it's not really business related, but there's a really, really great speech from an author named David Foster Wallace, the late David Foster Wallace. He did a commencement speech at a school called Kenyon College, and the title of the speech is This is Water. It's about a 22 to 23 minute speech, and it's talking about the importance of a liberal arts education and why it matters, and just I don't want to get too much into the details because I won't do it justice, but highly recommend anyone watch that. It's just wonderful. It's not necessarily, like I said, business related, but it's fantastic and yeah.
No, any kind of inspiration. I'll have to Google that. Is that on a YouTube video?
Yeah, I just Googled "This is water" on YouTube. It's the first one.
All right, for our listeners out there, I'm going to definitely put it in the show notes because he's got my curiosity again. So do you have a personal habit that helps you stay productive? I mean, I can't imagine juggling all these different hats. Being a student, starting this up, doing all these things can be very easy. So is there something of a personal habit that helps you?
It's a new one, so it's not, I wouldn't say it's at the stage of habit yet, but it's something I'm trying to do. So I guess I'll share that. And that's no electronics past 10 p.m. So no TV, no phone, no computer, to a certain extent, no lights either. Sometimes just by candlelight, which is a little bit dramatic, obviously, so not entirely necessary. But I think it's a productivity habit because you don't allow yourself to be stuck in front of a screen or bed. And I think it's so far it's helping me sleep better. But like I said, still early days. And really it just forces you to be bored for a bit before bed and maybe read a book or just talk to someone. And yeah, so that's one that I'll say.
I like that one. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try it tonight, actually. I like the whole thing about the candlelight. I keep buying candles and I never seem to use them. And maybe I'll actually start to use them this way too. So that is a great tip. I'm going to definitely try that one. So being that we've got a lot of international listeners, I think we just had Romania just joined us, Russia just joined us, so welcome, guys. Is there a favorite Canadian town, hotspot, hideaway restaurant that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, absolutely. The city of Montreal is a fantastic place to visit, especially in the summertime. It's not like the best kept secret or anything, but there's a lot of talk of Toronto and Vancouver lately and sort of the international scene. Montreal is like a little slice of Europe in North America. In the summertime, there's so many great things to do. There's a great jazz fest. There's a Formula One race, and it's just the food is incredible. People are very sort of artistic, and there's this ease of life there. So highly recommend visiting Montreal. I was fortunate enough to live there for 4 years. I'm happy in Toronto. Building my company where I am now is the right spot for it. But for anyone who's coming to visit Canada, don't forget to check out Montreal. It's charming.
It sounds like a piece of your heart is still left in Montreal, too.
Needless to say, yeah.
Great. And finally, how can our listeners connect with you?
Twitter, Facebook, at Parlay Ideas, Parlay Ideas, all one word, on both Twitter and Facebook. And then you can email me personally, bobby@parlayideas.com.
Great. This is wonderful. Guys, I'm going to make sure everything's in the show notes. And again, Bobby, thank you so much for your time and sharing all your wisdom. And I'm really excited to check out Parlay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you, innovators, for joining us this week. Our Facebook page is moving and growing each week, so please join us. I post a lot of interesting articles about Canadian innovation trends, the movers, the shakers, plus things that I think are just funny. And if you know any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me on email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in the review. I'm still channeling Gary V that ratings and reviews are my oxygen. And remember, this is our podcast. I look forward to hearing and chatting with you next week.